So I recently asked you guys which guitar technique you were finding to be the hardest to do fast and clean. Many of you were saying that you wanted to sweep pick as fast as Jason Becker or Jeff Loomis or Andy James. I want to give you guys 5 of my favorite sweep picking tips that I don't hear a lot of guitar teachers talk about that have been pretty instrumental in getting my sweep picking to be faster and cleaner. Let's go. Now, the first thing to know about sweep picking before we even get into the tips themselves is what exercises you are best off avoiding when you're first learning this technique. And ironically, these are the exercises that pretty much everybody starts with when they're new to sweep picking. And I'm talking, of course, about the standard major and minor arpeggio shapes, whether on 3 strings or 5 strings like these. Now, you would think it makes all the sense in the world to start with these shapes because, major and minor is like the simplest thing in music and you got to learn the simple stuff before you do the hard stuff. But when it comes to technique, the motions your hands are making, these shapes are anything but simple. But I'm not talking about the finger rolling that happens in some of these shapes where you have to roll the finger across several strings on the same fret like this. I'm talking about how every one of these shapes has hammer-ons and pull-offs, and it is these hammer-ons and pull-offs that can really mess up your picking hand if you don't know how to play them right. Let's take this A minor second inversion shape, for example. It's got no finger rolling at all, but it's got a hammer-on on the A string and a pull-off on the high E string. And the number of people who screw up this hammer-on and this pull-off because nobody taught them how to do it the right way is breathtaking. For one thing, many people don't even realize that this is a pull-off. And they try to alternate pick these 2 notes instead, and that just kills your speed right there, because by the time you're done alternate picking and you're supposed to head back that way towards the ceiling, your pick is heading in the other direction towards the floor. So that's just goodbye to speed. Then some people do the pull-off much faster than they play the other notes, like this. And it's very hard to speed something up when you've got 2 different note values happening and neither one is perfectly in time. Then on the A string, many people only play 1 note and don't play this note and they start their arpeggio here. So you end up with this weird 11-note pattern where you ascend in a group of 6, but descend with a group of 5. Yeah, good luck playing that one repeatedly over and over cleanly. That's also really hard to do. But the worst bad habit you can get into if you're learning sweep picking with these standard major and minor shapes that have hammer-ons and pull-offs in them, then your picking hand is going to end up doing something like this. Whenever a hammer-on or pull-off is happening, it flicks away from the strings, which destroys your momentum and kills your speed. Looks something like this. Yeah, if that's what your sweep picking motions look like, no wonder you can't sweep pick fast. But don't worry, because I'm going to show you how to fix it starting right now. Now, the first thing you got to do is choose arpeggios that do not have hammer-ons and pull-offs in them so you can learn them and get the motions down without worrying about the bad habits and the problems I just mentioned. And ironically, that means you're going to have to start with something a little bit more advanced. You're going to be playing 7th chords before you play major and minor triads. But, your hands don't care and your metronome numbers are going to thank you. And of all the 7th chord shapes available to you, by far the simplest one to start with, in my opinion, is this minor 7th pattern that goes like this. It doesn't have any finger rolling, doesn't have any awkward fretting hand-finger combinations, and that makes it super simple to sync up the 2 hands and just rip through it once you understand the basic motions. Sounds fast and flashy, but you will see in a second, it's one of the simplest things you can possibly play on guitar. So the first thing you got to learn is how to push the pick through the strings and pull it back through the strings in 1 motion in each direction. So it doesn't matter how many notes there are in the arpeggio, it's always 1 motion towards the floor, 1 motion towards the ceiling, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. From the front, it looks like this. And even though there are 6 notes in this arpeggio, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the pick doesn't care. It only moves 1 time here, 1 time here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Not like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's wrong. And notice also at this speed, the pick isn't really moving very fast, but the strings are being hit pretty often. So if you add the left hand at this speed, you get some pretty sick shredding. That's what I meant earlier when I said this arpeggio isn't hard at all to play fast. Playing stuff like this is much harder compared to the arpeggio I just showed you. And after you get the picking hand motions down, which honestly is not going to take you more than a few minutes if you practice in front of a mirror or a webcam, then you can add the fretting hand into the mix, and this time play the arpeggio as fast as you can handle while still doing the picking hand motion correctly like I described in the previous step, and making sure that every single note is perfectly clean, like this. When you can play the arpeggio that cleanly with the picking hand motions being done correctly, you're well on your way to speeding it up. So how do you speed up this arpeggio? You want to use a variation of the speed burst approach, what I call the J speed burst. The reason I call it a J speed burst is because you're going to go 3 notes up in pitch and 1 note back down, creating like this letter J path in my mind. That's how I see it. So it looks like this from the side. You go 3 notes up, 1 note back down. In fact, you may just want to practice it with just the picking hand like this. It's only 4 notes, so it's very, very easy, but what you want to practice is changing directions from here to 1 note here. That's the hardest part about this arpeggio in the picking hand. And it's also very simple to do with the fretting hand because all your fingers are already in position. You just put the ring finger here, middle finger here, index finger here, and if you start with your hand in this angled position already, it's very easy to just rip through this. Slow. And if you practice the picking hand motions as like 1 motion down, 1 motion up, like I told you in the previous step, this is going to be super, super simple to do. Because your picking hand is still only doing 2 motions, 1 motion here, 1 motion here. Even though you're doing 3 notes here and 1 note here, it doesn't matter. For the number of motions in this hand, it's 1 motion and another motion. It's always 2 motions when you're sweep picking. And if you're having trouble doing this with both hands, then go back to just doing the picking hand only. And then you can add the left hand back in, but slow down to maybe this. And after you can do the J burst pretty quick, then all you gotta do is add 2 more notes with the fretting hand by dragging the pick back through the strings like I taught you in the previous step, and then you're done with the arpeggio and you're ready to start cycling it over and over. So now that you know how to push the pick through the strings and pull it back through the strings, at this point you can go back to the standard major and minor shapes that everybody starts with, and you can actually play them correctly and have a good chance of speeding them up, even though there are hammer-ons and pull-ups happening that would otherwise disrupt your picking hand motions. Take this A minor root position shape, for example. Notice how despite the hammer on the A string and the pull-off on the high E string, my pick still does 1 motion this way, 1 motion that way. It's not phased by the hammer-on or the pull-off. Now, of course, there is more to sweep picking than what I just described, like, for example, the finger rolling thing, but, I've done other videos on this topic on my channel. You can search for them if you want. But these foundational principles, if you get them right, sky's the limit to how fast you can sweep pick. And if you want even more help from me with building your guitar speed, check out the link in the description of this video. Go to the page on the screen right now. I'm going to show you a free 1-hour masterclass called Guitar Speed Formula. What it is a way to practice where you don't have to start slow and gradually build speed in small increments, because you probably already know this way doesn't work nearly as well as everybody tells you that it does. If you want to know a different way that works much better and doesn't require more than 20 minutes of practice time per day, check out that link, enter your email address, I'll send you the video for free. And when it comes to building speed, it's just as important to know what not to do as it is to know what to do, because oftentimes it's the mistakes you're making that you don't realize you're making that mess you up the most. So watch this video right here where I lay out 5 of the most common guitar speed building mistakes and how to avoid each one. Watch it next.